Hey friends, welcome to my channel. Today I have 12 Autumn Harvest Cozy Home DIY ideas. I cannot wait to share them all, so let's get crafting. This DIY has actually been a pretty popular one. I've seen a lot of friends working with these pumpkins, but I wanted to show a more neutral look and something that I like in my own home. I wanted to make these for my house, so I thought I would share them. So I'm going to take one of these velvet pumpkins. I'm popping out the little faux stem that's in it and off the fabric that was wrapped around it. And then I'm going to take some of this white nautical rope and we are going to simply just put it all over the pumpkin. Now, a trick with this nautical rope, I like to squeeze a little bit of glue and then I twist it tight, and that's going to keep it from unfraying later on or while you're working with it, and it's just going to keep it looking nice and tight and how it's supposed to be looking. And then at the bottom of the pumpkin you're going to put a big dollop of glue, spiral it around, and continue on. Now the trick to make this look really high end is you want to keep pressing the rope together so there are no seams and there are no little spots where you can see the inside of that pumpkin that we're using as the form to wrap our rope around. That truly is the trick, whether or not it looks store-bought or not. And then once you get around to the top, you're going to notice that the smaller pumpkin needs about 1.5 of the nautical ropes, and the larger pumpkin is going to need about 2 full ropes. And then once I've got it all the way spiraled around the top, and this texture just looks so pretty, you could do this with so many different things, so many different types of ribbons and ropes. But when you get to the very top, you're going to want to start coiling it in really tight, continuing to push that rope down. And then as you get into the center, you're going to go ahead and cut it. Now you could put back the original stem, but I thought it would be really pretty to bring in some of these little log pieces that they have in their floral section at the Dollar Tree. And then you're just going to make sure you get that nice and snug in there, add in your hot glue, and then pop it back in. And the two of these side by side are so cute. Total cost to make these were about $5, maybe even a little bit less. And I just love how these both turned out. Our supplies are going to be 2 of these garden hang baskets. They have these out around springtime and I bought a whole bunch of them knowing that this could be turned into a pumpkin. I was so excited to figure this out because I haven't really seen anybody do this. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen anybody use these to turn this into a pumpkin. It is the easiest DIY ever. You're going to just take off the wire chains and then you're going to line up the lines on the baskets, and then with some zip ties from the Dollar Tree you're just going to zip tie every single joint where the bars line up. Then you're going to take your scissors and you are going to snip off the rest of the zip tie, and make sure you take the part that has that little square on the end where it fastens all together, twist that inward so you don't see it sticking out. Once you've got that done, go ahead and take a jar lid that they have at the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to just use some E6000 so that this stays together nice and tight, because this is going to become the top of our little pumpkin, so we can go ahead and add a stem to it and decorate it however you would like, honestly. Then you're going to take some hot glue on the inside and just glue that in place. Now this tool, I'm going to be showing it a little bit later on. I've showed it here before on my channel. It's called a Crop-A-Dile. It's used for scrapbooking and fastening on eyelets. I love this tool, but you can see that I used it because it's able to punch through metal like nothing. I mean, it is like using a hole puncher going through paper. So I went ahead and punched 2 holes so I could take some more zip ties and then fasten that to the top without having to worry about it coming off later. Then I took it outside and spray painted a really pretty fun orange color. You could do this whatever color you want for your pumpkin. And then I'm going to scrape off a little bit of the paint at the top because I want to make sure that it bonds well to the actual metal versus the paint. Over time that can peel away and break off really easy. So then I'm going to take one of these little wood stumps that they sell at the Dollar Tree in their floral section, glue that on, and then I'm going to take some of this greenery and staple it to the backside of that little log. And I did that because I didn't want to worry about these falling off over time, and stapling it on there is going to hold everything together nice and tight. I added some more hot glue, and then I'm coming in with this bead garland that you all know that I love here. You're going to see this a lot throughout this video because I think it's so cute when it's coiled and it makes it look like a pumpkin vine, all curly and cute. Then once all that was in place, I added a bow, and you are ready to decorate your home. This DIY has a free printable that will be linked down below in my description box that I designed for all of you today. I thought it would be fun to do an easy project that has a printable. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take one of these large canvases from the Dollar Tree. It's a flat canvas. And we're going to go ahead and find some scrapbook paper that you have on hand that you like, that looks well with the printable. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut it down to size, and then I'm going to use my tape gun. I'll link my tape gun down below. I get asked about it all the time. It's my favorite for adhesive. And then I'm going to just stick my paper right on there, smooth it all out, and make sure it's bond really well to that canvas. I should also say I'm using the back side of the canvas because there is a paper liner on the back versus the canvas on the front side that has that painted surface that might make the adhesive peel off over time. So now I'm going to just match up another piece because it is not the full length, it's a little bit longer. These canvases, I believe, are 13 or 14 inches long. I cannot remember, but I needed just a little bit more. I think it's 14 inches because of the width of the paper I'm putting on here. So I just basically measured it, lined up the pattern, and then I cut it down to size, and I'm putting that on, and it camouflages it because the pattern lines up perfectly. Now I'm going to go ahead and take that printable, and I'm just going to add some adhesive to the back of it, and then put that right down onto the center of my canvas backdrop. And now I'm going to go ahead and take some of these popsicle sticks. I thought this was a pretty fall touch to add on some popsicle sticks. And you could stain these, but I really liked this blonde wood color with the printable. I thought it looked really pretty with the little wheat pieces down by the tires, and I thought it looked really pretty with the colors of the pumpkin. So I went ahead and I just framed out the whole printable, and now I'm going to make a bow out of some burlap ribbon from the Dollar Tree. I'm just going to pop that right on. And then the last finishing touches are just putting on some twine and some support ribbons on the back to be able to hang it up somewhere in my home, and it's ready to decorate for fall. Now remember, this printable is over on my website. I will link that down below in my description box so you can get it, and I will also pin it at the top of my comments so you can find it easily. This DIY is very whimsical and easy to recreate for any level of crafter. I'm going to take some of these leftover painter handles after cutting them down from a bunch of other projects, but you could also use some of these large tongue depressor sticks that you can see over to the side here that I'm going to be using for the hat. You could use those too. And I'm going to take my Crop-A-Dile and I'm going to punch out 2 holes on these painter stick handles that I have cut down from, like I said, previous projects. I want to make sure I'm using every single thing in my craft room and trying to maximize my supplies. And now once I've got those 2 holes on the sides and not the one in the middle, I'm going to go ahead and measure out the brim of the hat with these large tongue depressor sticks. I finally found a link for them on Amazon, so I'm going to link them down below. I get mine from Walmart, but some people say they have a hard time finding them. So I'm going to link the ones that I also found over on Amazon down below in my description box. I love these jumbo sticks. I use them all the time because they're really great to work with to get a wood look, and you can cut them with your scissors. So I went ahead and glued 2 of them together to make a thicker brimmed hat, glued it at an angle, and now I'm going to just dry brush on some brown paint for the face of my cute little scarecrow little decor piece. And then the top is going to be a rusty orange. And then I didn't show this part very well. I'm so sorry, but I just took some raffia and I cut it down to size and made it look like the scarecrow had a little bit of hat hair coming out on the sides. So you can just see that I kind of glued it on the back side and I gave it a little cut. Not too long, but you know, just cute enough to pop out. And now I'm going to add on the face a little smile, 2 eyes with the back of my brush, and then I'm going to use the same orange color that I used on the hat, and I'm going to just do a little triangle nose. And then at this point it could stop here, but I feel like it still needed a little bit something extra, so I'm going to go ahead and take one of these Dollar Tree sunflowers and I'm going to glue that off to the side. I thought this was a cute little touch to add. And once I had that glued down in place, I went ahead and added the twine to the very top where we punched out those holes originally. Tied those on so I can hang it up on a doorknob or a hook on, you know, the wall somewhere. And now I'm going to, again, just add a little bit more. I'm going to add a bow, and the finishing touch, I felt like it needed a button right in the middle of the bow. So I added a green button, and I love how it turned out. I just think it's so whimsical. I hope you feel inspired by all of the crafts that I'm sharing today. And if you haven't already, please do give this video a thumbs up. It means so much to me and it really does help out my channel. For this DIY, I'm going to be taking some of these stacking blocks from the kids section at the Dollar Tree, and then these wooden pumpkins that there are 5 in a pack, and we're only going to be needing 4 of them because we're going to be using them to spell out the word fall. What we're going to do next is we're going to take some of their putty that they have at the Dollar Tree and we're going to fill in those holes, and then we're going to take these stacking blocks and we are going to line them all up. Now you're going to need 2 rows of 12, so you're going to need 24 of them, and you can use the light one and the dark ones because that's how they come in the box. I just happen to have a lot of these dark brown ones, but what I like to do is I like to add a little bit of glue. I flatten it on the table and then flatten it on its side to make sure it's nice and straight as possible. Now, after doing this, I realized that you could do, instead of 12 long, you could do 11 long. It won't be as much hangover. You'll see at the end what I'm talking about. But if you like the way that I did it, you can stick with doing the 12 stacking blocks like I did. Okay, now once those are glued together, we're going to go ahead and take these long painter sticks. They're a little bit thicker than the normal smaller ones where there's 10 in a pack. This one comes 3 in a pack for $1 at your home improvement stores. I get mine from Home Depot. And then I'm going to take my miter box and I'm going to cut it down to size because one is not long enough to reach the full length of the 12. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that down to what I need with my miter box. I'll link this down below if you're interested in this tool. I love it. I use it here all the time on my channel. And then I'm going to glue the 2 ends together to make sure it's the right length for the whole thing. Now it was kind of hard to get this whole thing in the shot, so I do apologize that it's not fully all the way in it, but you're going to go ahead and glue those down on it, and then you're going to make sure your pumpkin can fit inside without it having any issues or being too tight. And it's so amazing because it was like meant to all fit together, where it was the right size for the stacking blocks and the painter stick and then the pumpkin to fit in the middle. So once you have everything all glued together, go ahead and pick your paint color that you would like. Now I'm going to do a couple different tints of painting. I couldn't decide on where I wanted to land. First I thought I would do a dark slate color, and then I thought, that's too dark. And then you'll see in a little bit, I'm gonna actually end up lightening it. I just kept playing with it. So while that black paint was drying, I'm gonna go ahead and sand off the extra that was coming out of those little holes to fill them. And I'm gonna paint all of my pumpkins white on both sides. And then here I am, I'm going back in with a lighter. I decided to go, let me let some of that black pop through, and I'm going to put on some of this brownish gray color that I put together. And that still even ended up not being what I wanted, so you're going to see me paint it one more time. This is just the creative process. I know you all get it if you're a crafter like I am. We just keep playing with it until we get it the way we love it. So I wanted, again, to get a lighter gray color. So I'm going to just paint the letters F-A-L-L for fall, and once those are all dry, I can add them to my pumpkins, and you'll see me do that in a minute. Now here I am, I'm gonna go ahead and put some hot glue and put in my pumpkins, and I didn't put them flat, like all the way in and just flat to the bottom. I had some kind of twisted a little bit to the side because I thought that was cute and it added a little more personality to the pumpkins. And then here my letters are, they're dry, and I'm gonna go ahead and stick those right on. Now I did cover the pumpkin and the letters with Mod Podge because I wanted to make sure they stayed on there. Once it was all dry, I went ahead and took some of my grass skirts. I love that because it's really long strands. If you had any of those grass tree skirts from the Dollar Tree, they're so great to tie bows with. And then I went ahead and added those on, and here I am once again adding color to the base. It was at this point when I finally fell in love with it. It had this very natural fall look. By the way, if you look at my hand, you can see a massive blister. I burnt myself while making some of these DIYs, and it really hurt. This next DIY is a little more labor intensive, so it's a little more advanced, I will say, for a longtime crafter, but anybody honestly could try it because it's such a fun DIY craft to try for the fall. I'm going to be taking one of these 3D wreaths and two different types of beads from the Dollar Tree craft sections. So I'm going to go ahead by taking that wire round form, and I'm going to push it down to replicate the shape of a pumpkin. As I did that, the wires went ahead and started popping, which is what I want because we're going to open those up and put beads on each one. Now because there's that middle joint, you're going to have to cut it on both sides, so it was perfect that it snapped where it did, and then I went ahead and cut on the next side of it to be able to get beads on both, because you can see that it's got that little nub in the middle to bring them all together. So once I had the first side cut, I went ahead and strung on my beads, and this part didn't really matter how I did it, but I did do a round one and then a long one. Then when I got to the point where I was ready to bring it back together, I found the perfect size bead, made sure it was right, and then I pulled everything back, and then I added some hot glue in place. And the trick to making sure you get a nice good hold on it is making sure you hold it in place until the hot glue completely sets. You could also put on just a tiny little dot of some E6000, that might help it lock in even better, but I had it work really well with my hot glue where I didn't have any issues. You can see here I just added my hot glue, and then I'm going to hold it in place so that the wire really locks inside of the bead and it becomes much stronger and the bond is really great. So then I'm going to move over to the other side and I'm going to cut it. I will say cutting this wire is a little bit tricky. It could just be because my pliers are really old, my wire cutters, but I always like to just wiggle it back and forth until it snaps, but be careful doing that because you don't want to bend the wire too much because it can make it hard to put the beads on. Now at this point I ended up having everything covered in beads thanks to Calvin. He actually came in and helped me with some of the beads on some of these loops, so I was grateful for his help. And this part was really fun. We both enjoyed doing it, and it was funny trying not to have beads fling all over the place as we were wiring them on. We had a good laugh doing this project together. And then once you've got everything all glued in place and everything back onto the original wire pieces in the middle where it comes together like this shape, I'm going to go ahead and take those 2 wires pointing inward into this now pumpkin shape, and I'm going to bend them up and out to make sure I lock all of these bands together. So once I've got that wire nice and tightened and I got my pumpkin shape that I was going for, I went ahead and took some hot glue and made sure I locked everything into place so it was nice and secure, and it stayed the round shape of a pumpkin, because you can see naturally kept wanting to pull back. So I'm just making sure that the hot glue is being held in place while it's drying. Once I was done with that, I went ahead and took one of these wood rounds from the Dollar Tree craft section. I'm going to take some of the wood filler, the putty, go ahead and put that in there to make sure that it has a nice look. I don't want to have that hole there because I don't want anyone to see that part. Now I'm going to take my countersink drill bit that a sweet crafting friend sent me a while ago that was a subscriber, and I'm going to drill 2 holes, and this is going to help everything lay flat on the bottom when I stand this up on a table. So I went ahead and did that, and now I'm going to do 2 drills inside of those countersink holes, and this is going to allow the wire to go down and around without it causing any issues of the wire making this wood round kind of tilt back and forth, because there's, you know, an extra added layer to the bottom. So it's going to really help it lock into place with the pumpkin on top, and the wire is going to be concealed underneath it, and it's all going to sit flat. This is the part I think is probably the most complicated out of it and probably a little more advanced, but again, this was such a fun project to do. So if you have anyone that works well with tools, this would be a fun project to do together. And then at this point, once the wire was nice and tight, I came back in with my hot glue and just locked everything into place, making sure it was really strong and secure. And you can see here that I flipped it over and it's doing a great job at this point, not moving around. I took it outside and first spray painted it black, and then I spray painted it cream, and that was to help stop the bleeding of the hot pink, purple, and yellow beads. Those colors kept wanting to bleed through, and doing the black first, then the cream really helped it. And then I came back in with some orange, and I wanted to make sure you could still see that cream coming through. I really liked how that looked. And now I'm going to take a twig that I picked up from a twig pack at the Dollar Tree in their floral section. I drilled a hole and wired it to the top. Once the top was on, I went ahead and added some more hot glue, because why not? It helps lock everything in place. And then I gave a nice coat to the bottom of the stand, and I did a little bit more of dry brushing with the cream and some brown on the orange to take down some of that orange so it's not so intense. And then last I added on some leaves, a couple bows, and then the finishing touch was this darling little white star button. This DIY is super simple to recreate. We're going to use some rub-ons from the Dollar Tree, a foam square, a white bucket, and then these really darling florals for the fall. All of it's from the Dollar Tree, and we're going to start by removing the sticker from the bottom of the bucket, and then we're going to take this foam square from the Dollar Tree and we're going to cut it down to the size that we need. I like to use my scissors like this. This is the easiest way I always find to cut it. I know some of you say that you use large knives from your kitchen to be able to cut it, and that works too. Then I'm going to go ahead and add in my E6000 and hot glue, but before I go any further, I wanted to give a real quick thank you to Cynthia, who sent me this amazing product where you slip it on and you twist it to allow you to get all of every drop from your E6000. I love this tool. I'm going to link it down below over on Amazon because this thing is so cool. And Cynthia, thank you so much for sending this to me. It was so thoughtful of you. I'm always trying to get every drop and every penny of my craft supplies. So thank you, thank you. Now I went ahead and cut free all of my little stems off of these wheat florals because I wanted to make sure that I maximized the volume, and I like to think highest in the middle, lowest on the ends. So I just keep playing with it until I like the way it looks, and I give it a little haircut on parts that I don't like. And now I'm coming in with some hot glue and some of this moss, and I'm just tucking that down in there to really give it a beautiful fall look. And these buckets work so well with the rub-ons from the Dollar Tree. So I'm going to cut out Farm Sweet Farm on it, and I'm going to just simply rub those on and then remove the covering on it once it's nice and stuck to the bucket. Give it a nice rub, and then I'm going to take my sanding block and just rough it up a little. The supplies we're going to be using are 2 of these 4x6 frames from the Dollar Tree and some scrapbook paper, and then you're also going to see me using some of the stacking blocks from the toy section. So what we're going to do now is we are going to remove the canvases off of both of our frames because we want to get down to the wood, and then we're going to take a thick piece of cardstock and we're going to use that to cut out 2 of the exact same sizes so that we can glue them on the front and the back. Now I thought this would be such a fun thing to make a 2-sided decor piece for Thanksgiving, so you can turn it whichever way you would like, and then you have options if you like to switch up your decor throughout the years. I always like to go back and forth with different color themes. So you're going to see here that I glued down that piece of cardstock that had the scrapbook paper, and then I'm going to sandwich it in between the 2 wood frames. Now we're going to have that seam around it, which is not so pretty or desirable, so I'm going to take some hot glue and this satiny ribbon from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to just wrap it around it to help conceal that. And then you still are going to be able to see it popping through just a little bit, so I'm going to go back in again with another ribbon, but this time it's the lace from the Dollar Tree. I love this stuff. It comes out around this time of year, so I always make sure I stock up on it. That will be enough to last throughout the whole rest of the year when it's not in stock. And then at this point, once I went around that, I'm going to take those stacking blocks I talked about earlier, and I'm going to align 4 of them as straightly as I can, so that way this is going to help stand up our little decor sign. So once I've got 4, I added on some wood glue and some hot glue for that short-term, long-term hold, and I'm going to put it on both sides. So I'm doing it first on the buffalo check side, and then I'm going to come around on the yellow polka dot side, and I'm going to just make sure they're lined up as straightly as I can. And once those are all done, I did go ahead on the bottom and I added in a couple staples with my staple gun just to make sure it was nice and secure on there. And then if you don't want it to scratch your surface, you could always put a little piece of fabric or some more paper at the bottom of it. Now I'm adding on 2 more of those stacking blocks behind the pumpkin, and this was one of those hanging decor signs that they had at the Dollar Tree. It had a bunch of footballs on it. I think there was 2 footballs and 3 pumpkins. So I popped off 2 of the pumpkins, and I'm going to just add them onto my sign. One I had where it had the words coming out, where it said family, and then the other one I painted the back side of the pumpkin white. And now I'm going to take some of this bead garland. I love this stuff, and I am going to definitely be using this a lot. I love this stuff so much. I think it's so pretty. And then I just coiled it up around my pumpkin to make it look, you know, more raised, more high quality. I love putting stuff on here like these kind of garlands because it just adds more texture and depth. And then on the white pumpkin, I went ahead and put our family's name, the Sonbouls, and sealed it with some Mod Podge to make sure that it doesn't come off over time. And at this point, you're ready to display it. This DIY is going to be using these two glass pieces from the Dollar Tree. I wanted to show how easy it is to make a high-end, beautiful piece. Now these type of candelabras or hurricanes are sold at Pottery Barn for so much money, and I'm simply taking these two things and gluing them together, and we're going to add on a bead garland to elevate the look even more. These would be so pretty on a dining room table for Thanksgiving, going down the middle. You can put some tea lights in them or some twinkle lights. This would be the prettiest thing to put in between some florals and just decorate your table for a very friendly budget. For this DIY, we're going to be using this really darling scarecrow sign. You could leave it as is, but I wanted to make something a little bit different with it. So I'm going to pop off the welcome part, and then I'm going to snip the string on the back, flip it over, and pop out the staples that are with that twine that is on there. Once you've got that all removed, I'm going to make a line where I want to score my board so that I can cut it in half, because we're going to make two large tag signs. These are so cute to put on a shelf or by your front door where you're decorating your fall area. Everyone's got some place in their home that they love to put some decor pieces out. And the greatest thing about this sign is you can make two of these tags, and you'll see at the end how they look all together. But they look so cute if you stack some pumpkins in front of it. Now, once I got my angles cut off on those top corners, as you saw me do, I'm going to go ahead and cut some scrapbook paper down. Now this one sign is a little bit longer than a 12-inch piece of paper, so I added on a little bit more paper at the bottom. I thought it would be really cute to mix up some of the paper, so I've got that green polka dot with the really pretty berry red stripe, and then I also have this wood grain paper. Now this all came in a paper packet. I'm going to link that paper down below if you're interested. I pick it up at Joann's and I got it on sale, and I love these kind of paper pads because you can do so many cool things, and you can keep that color scheme going throughout your DIYs as you're working on your projects throughout the season. So now I'm going to add on some twine, and I'm going to add on some of these leaves. I thought this would be really cute to add this on, and then I'm going to pull out my trusty Crop-A-Dile. Friends, you know I love this. I know so many of you have been picking these up. Let me know in the comments down below how you have been enjoying your Crop-A-Dile if you bought one recently. I'm going to link it down below in the description box. It is the best tool to punch through wood, metal, plastic. This thing can go through everything, and it never hurts my hand. It's got this really great spring system on it. Once I punched my hole in the top of my sign, I went ahead and wrapped in some of this rope again that I love, and I'm just going to twist the end again. You're going to see here where I twist it and then frayed the edges, and then you can put it up to display. For this DIY, we are going to be taking this long wood sign that you can get from the Dollar Tree, and we're going to take my miter box and we're going to use a 45-degree angle, and we're going to cut two pieces. This is going to be the piece left over we don't need. Two pieces that we like the height of them, one a little taller, one a little shorter, and then we're going to flip it the other way, and we're going to do a 45-degree cut again to create a rooftop. Now these signs, I've seen so many people do them so many different ways, and I thought it would be really cute to make these into little homes that you can use on a tiered tray or on a shelf, and it's just so fun because it only cost me $1. Now I picked up this paper pad from Joann's. I had a really great coupon for it, and it had so many beautiful prints for the fall time. And I'm going to just take out this taupey brown buffalo check paper and this scroll font paper. So now what I'm doing is I'm showing how I trace out my house. I like to make it one continuous piece versus trying to cut out all these different pieces of paper, and then you have weird seam lines. So what I'm doing is I started flat, traced the roof, rotated it, traced the other side of the roof, rotated it again, and now I'm going to take my ruler and come back in and make the connecting joints where the side of the house is. Then you're going to take your scissors, simply cut it out and glue it onto your house. See how it has a nice seamless look all the way around it because you've wrapped it versus having a bunch of different pieces of paper, and it avoids you having to paint the house a white color or whatever. It just takes away one step. Now for the roof, we're going to take some of those really thick, long Depressor sticks that you can pick up at Walmart. They're really big. And I'm going to just simply cut them down to the size that I need. We need 2 different sizes because on the roof, we want them to be able to miter into each other or meet up. So one has to be just a hair longer than the other one. And then I decided to do one rooftop where it has more of a darker black roof. And then the other one is more of a really pretty walnut or amber looking rooftop. So I'm just putting those on with some glue. And then a really cute detail is taking a nail, and first you're going to hammer it in straight to the side where it's going to let it get in there, and then I rotated a little bit and hammered it the rest of the way. Now on the front of the house, you can stop there or we can continue to keep adding some little details. I added some little greenery, some twine, and then this little cute sunflower that I found at the Dollar Tree in their craft section for fall time. And then on the little house, I just added some more twine and a bow to the front of it. This craft is going to turn out so beautiful. We're going to use one of these signs from the Dollar Tree and some of these red eucalyptus leaves. I'm going to start by popping off this wood piece at the top and then removing the twine. We're going to repurpose that, but first we're going to recover this sign. Take off all of the things that you can from it. I'm using a heat gun to remove the sticker from the back. Once that was all done, I went ahead and covered the front side with this gingham paper. It's scrapbook paper that was a burgundy red and white. And then on the back side, that's the side we're going to have actually now become the front side. I'm using my tape gun and I'm going to just go ahead and put on this shiplap paper. And first I always like to kind of cut it down to size once I stick it on. This is the quickest way I like doing it versus tracing it, because sometimes tracing and cutting out does not get an accurate all the way to the edge look that you're going for. So I always like to glue it on, cut it down as close as I can, and then I sand it with a sanding block. So here I am now, it's all covered, and I'm going to add on some hot glue, bring back on that twine, and then that wood bar from before, I'm going to add some more hot glue after I cleaned it up from the original paper that was stuck to it. I'm going to go ahead and put that down, and I've got these little clips that I love, love, love from the Dollar Tree. I use these a lot in my craft room to hold things in place while they dry. And now I'm going to take that eucalyptus, I cut them down to the very bottom of the handle of the floral pick, and I'm going to just take them and twine and wind them all together until I get a really long line of this. And then I'm going to start turning and curving it into a small wreath. I love using these pick stems for making mini wreaths like this. It is the easiest thing ever. Now I'm going to use my big bite, my Crop-A-Dile. This is the bigger version of the Crop-A-Dile. And I like it because it gets a nice far in reach. I punched a couple holes, and I'm going to use red zip ties to zip tie this on to my sign. That is going to really hold it in place. So I did it on the sides and the top and the bottom, and the red camouflaged perfectly inside of this red eucalyptus floral. So once everything was zip tied into place, I went ahead and got some of my stickers from the Dollar Tree, put my monogram, my S in the middle, and then the last thing it needed was just a bow at the top, because I love bows here on my channel. I went ahead and made a bow and just popped that right on the top, and it was ready to be displayed. I hope you felt inspired today. Leave a comment down below to let me know what you think, which one you liked, which one you think you will try. And until the next episode, bye friends.